What's up, y'all? I hope you're doing well. We're here for our weekly anchor message where we're getting our spiritual assignments for the week. And out of the wild unknown archetypes, we have the one, followed by the comic, followed by Gnosis. Underneath the one, we've got Six of Cups. Underneath the comic, we have Eight of Wands. And underneath Gnosis, we have the Chariot. All right, loving the cards for the week. I think that they're an encouraging breath of fresh air. I'm going to let you guys listen to the audio and look at the photo of the spread, and we will be right back. While Mercury is retrograde in Leo, the inner child within us is trying to get our attention. There's an innocence and levity that we are being compelled to preserve and save. What was your connection like with God before the world tampered with it? What awe and wonder and joy and excitement were you directly connected to then? There is a child within us who longs to be saved. This child has been abandoned and neglected, even traumatized perhaps, and needs healing, nurturing, structure, kindness, patience, self-expression, and play. In order to both keep our hearts soft and strong enough not to collapse into depression, we must grieve and yet also ignite our joy. The mystic understands that a sovereign soul has learned to live within a paradox that requires us to hold joy in one hand and sorrow in the other. There is light and truth and good and beauty and justice that we must bring into this world that wants to be revealed through the light of our soul, but we cannot be channels of this light from a downtrodden and defeated place. We must grieve truthfully and honestly, and at the same time reach for joy in our hearts, minds, and deeds. We must preserve our humor and playfulness without masking our pain or trivializing suffering. Humor and playfulness may seem trivial, but when you think about it, they're in league with the things that give us a reason to live and to keep going. When you see dystopian portrayals, there's always a cold and stark lack of beauty, joy, and playfulness. It is our joy that will keep our tanks full, to keep showing up to make an effort. It's impossible to truly understand the world without being heartbroken by it. As we gain wisdom, we must also allow for the transformation of our hearts and our souls. This alights a spark in us that sets a fire to another. All right, so the one. This is the card that describes source, creator, the all that is, the oneness and unity of all things. This paired with the Six of Cups makes me immediately, it takes me back to my childhood and remembering how I was the same as I am now. I was in awe of God, and I would look up into the night sky and I would see God in that expanse. And somehow instinctually I knew that trying to stretch my mind to contemplate the farthest reaches and edges of reality were synonymous with spending time with God and understanding the nature of God. what is existence? What is non-existence? I was always obsessed with what is on the edge of our physical existence, right? We have our physical existence and it takes up space, right? Like our multiverse, like imagine that, and it takes up space. Imagine it's taking up this space here. Well, what is all of this? What is on the outside of physical manifest existence? Think about things like that. And I think that sparked so much imagination and curiosity in me. And it also led me to I was also that child who would sit in a ditch and play with dirt and rocks for hours. And I would sit there, like where my house was growing up, we'd have these big, huge rock slabs, like in woods all around, and big boulders and things. And I would love spending time on these big rocks. And I would be making like these little, like what I now know as the crystal grids, right? But I would be making them with like rocks and acorns and sticks. And I would be like making, these little things, that now I wouldn't think, okay, that would be a sigil or whatever. And then there was like a big bonfire, right? And so I would be the child who's like out in the woods for hours, playing in the creek, playing on the rock, hanging out with the trees. And I just instinctually had a feeling that there were fairies around me that I couldn't see. And I would try to catch glimpses of them and trick them into appearing to me. But yeah, so I think that there's something about that coming up, that reigniting the child within. There's like this essence to do with Leo. Leo is the inner child, and the fifth house is really connected with play. I think it's the fifth house is Leo. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but whatever house Leo is the ruler over, it's about our play, our pleasure, our joy. And I think that in this moment, in the collective, there is so much terror and heaviness and sorrow and distress and destruction and evil and wickedness at bay. And it's so easy right now to be consumed in that darkness and swallowed up by the enormity of it all. And it's interesting because this week's Torah portion, I went back and I was listening to the Daily Zohar, like on my drive home, and it was talking about doing our work at night and in the morning. And the night represents when the blessings are concealed. We're going through a hard time. We can't see the answers. We're uncertain. We don't know how things are going to work out. We have concerns. We have fears. We have anxiety. And then there's the daytime when, blessings are being revealed and things are starting to come into place. And particularly the dawn is a symbol of that redemption when things start to fall into place. The tides shift and you can kind of rest your hypervigilant nervous system because you feel that things are getting better and the threat is passing and the tension is releasing. And so the not necessarily serious spiritually devoted individual is happy to do their work, the spiritual work during the day, right? When things are comfortable, when things are at ease, when they can see what's ahead of them, right? It's easy for us to be generous when we have consistent income. It's easy for us to be kind when we're not under a lot of pressure. When we get snippy and when we get worried and tight with our money and things like that, it's usually during times of uncertainty or when we're under pressure. And so then it's like those moments where we lack grace, where we become reactive, right? So the key is to lean into the work and lean into the transformation when it's night, when things are difficult, when you are in the midst of the storm. Let that be the moment you're transformed, because if you can do it in the midst of the difficulty, it counts more than ever. And that's one of the reasons why these 3 weeks, the 3 weeks, Ben Hamatsurim, are potentially the 3 most miraculous weeks of the year, because they're putting so much pressure and intensity. It'd be easy to respond to these tests in negative reactive ways, right? But instead, we're trying to practice that sovereignty and that self-control where we can take a step back and be a little bit detached and watch our reactions and slow down and say, you know what? Okay, I'm not going to be reactive. This is my moment where I can really overcome this and transcend this fear, transcend this negative emotion that has a hold on me, whether it be lack, scarcity, doubt, a grudge, bitterness, sadness, whatever it is. I'm going to overcome this. It's not going to own me. It's not going to control me. It's not going to ruin things for me. It's not going to block me from moving forward in my progress and my potential any longer. So the key this week is, in the midst of the challenge, this is when we lean in and we do the work the most joyfully, because this is the biggest opportunity. When we do the work during the day, when we make changes during, the easy times, sure, it moves some light, it reveals some sparks. But when something is difficult, it yields exponential fruit when we overcome something difficult, as opposed to when we overcome something easy. So back to talking about Leo. Leo is connected to the inner child, the things that bring us play and joy and pleasure. And so there's something about reconnecting with that sense of joy that's going to bring us that much closer to the Creator. And our strength and our connection to the Creator is going to give us so much inner peace and fulfillment that our inner child will be at ease. We can play again. We can relax our hypervigilance. And I think it's not just a luxury, but a necessity. Through my life, I will admit that my humor has been my greatest comfort and my greatest defense mechanism. It's been my greatest friend and entertainer, and no matter what circumstance I'm in, and no matter where I'm at or what has happened, I have been able to find humor in that moment and find something to laugh about. I was in the midst of being arrested, and I was in the hospital getting my blood tested for a presumed DUI. And I was not driving under the influence. I had a really extreme migraine, and it was being misstrued, but also I'd been pulled over and they were making an example of me. And it was one of those situations where they just wanted to get an arrest. It was in a smaller town where I grew up, and so it was just one of those things where it was really shitty and unfair, but there I was going through it. And I'm feeling such shit, and I'm so feeble. I nearly had to go to the emergency room the day before for this migraine. And so I just gotten back to work. It was a really long shift. It was I was working on a television show. So it was late nighttime shoots, middle of the night, just feeling super feeble. And I was needing to have diarrhea. And I was driving home from I was doing a 45-minute drive from a rural area back to the urban area. And I was where am I going to pull over, go to the bathroom? Where's there a gas station? So I wasn't even speeding really or anything, but what happened was when I got on the interstate, immediately there was police pulled over and giving someone a ticket, but they were over an extra amount, that it was an extra lane over. And so I didn't move over. I was just it all happened so fast. I was dull and slow from the headache. And so I got pulled over for failing to move over. And then they said I was reckless driving. And then they accused me of leading them in a high-speed chase because it took me too long to pull over. But I didn't know they were pulling me over. I didn't realize I'd done anything wrong. And it wasn't that long. And we were not in a high-speed chase. So long story short, they were determined that they were going to arrest me. So I did the field sobriety test. Miraculously, I passed it, but they said that I didn't. And so they took me in and they were like, they said, do you want to go, should we get a warrant to get a blood test, or do you want us to just take you and get the blood test? And I kind of stalled, and they're like, fine, we'll go get a warrant. And so anyway, we finally end up at the hospital to get my blood tested. And I have had diarrhea this whole time. Like, I've just been holding it through this whole terrifying, awkward, difficult arrest, field sobriety test, all the things with a migraine. And I finally get them to let me go to the bathroom, and they're convinced that I'm drunk, and they're judging me and saying all these mean things, the nurse and the cop and everything. And so I'm in the bathroom, and it's like one of those one single stalls in the hallway, and I go to pull some toilet paper out of the toilet paper holder, and the metal thing falls off the wall. It makes a big commotion, and I'm trying to get it attached back to the wall. And I'm like, great, now they really think I'm drunk. And I'm like, even in that moment, like, scared, feeble, falling apart. Like, I found humor in that moment. I laughed at myself, and I was just like, fuck. So yes, I feel like humor can be a defense mechanism, and it can be something that you armor yourself with, and it can be like a mask, and you can mask your pain by putting that humor on. So, you know, in a way it can be a negative tool, but also it can be a life-saving tool. Because also, you know, there have been moments where, you know, we were at the funeral of a family, you know, member, my brother, and there were moments where everyone is just so brokenhearted, and you just have to have a release from that moment. And, you know, I would be the person cracking a joke, and then it would just like, oh, we needed that so much, you know. So sometimes it can be, you know, not appropriate, but when it is truthful, humor can be so healing, and it can be so comforting. And it can also be such a chilling sign when the humor just starts to slip and people lose their humor. One of the things that I find so just heart-wrenching right now is looking at watching this footage from Gaza. And the little children, I mean, the progression of the updates over the months, it's like at first the children were still able to find moments of play and lightness, and now it's just they just don't have any willpower. The babies are just laying, they don't have enough energy to cry. The children are fighting for survival and trying to get food, and it's just seeing the play come out of those children, and even if they survive, wondering what it's going to take for them to ever find peace and fulfillment and joy and lightness again. And just watching their innocence be ripped from them in real time. It's like when you see the dystopian scenes that directors create, or that writers create, or that artists create, there's always a lack of humor, and there's no beauty, and there's no play, and there's no childlikeness anymore. You never see the children around. It's just dark toil. And so it's so important that we are able to preserve the inner child within each of us, and think about the inner child within each other, and do what we can to protect it, and heal and nurture and reparent that child. And in our day-to-day mundane, just getting through our day, right? We need to reparent this child because the inner child within us, it needs structure to feel secure. Remember recently I was saying that when I gave myself more structure and discipline, I was actually more free and I got to do more things. And it's the same. Children don't want to feel like they're in charge running the show. They want discipline. They want structure. And so that inner child in us, we need to reparent that part of ourself that like needs to be told no, or needs to be told to do what's good for the self. Take care of your responsibilities, but it's called reparenting, right? We have to reparent that child and be the parent for our inner child that we didn't have. So none of us had the ideal parent that was like the perfect, execution of parenthood, right? And so it's not, they do their best, right? We all do our best. We just do the best with what we have at the time, that we are, the consciousness that we have at the time, right? So we go back and we tell our inner child, we go back to the moment where the pain happened. And we comfort that child and we take the child into ourselves and we handle the situation. We wish that like there would have been an adult to handle it, to stand up for us, to protect us, to tell us what we needed to hear, to take care of business the way that things need to be taken care of, right? When we let our life kind of fall apart and we're not doing our adulting, our inner child becomes very insecure and it doesn't feel safe and it doesn't feel like things are going to be okay. It feels like no one's driving the ship and things are falling apart. So I think that there's this call, because like in order to be close to the Creator, in order for the Spirit of God to be around us and upon us, we have to have a sense of joy. The Shina, the Spirit of God, cannot be in a place that lacks joy. And so our joy is honestly our protection and our grace, because when we have joy and when our spirit is not completely downtrodden and hopeless, we are hopeful, and that spirit can be with us and near us, and that's how we draw in those blessings. We channel those blessings because that spirit is with us. But when we are cruel or angry or fearful or despondent, that spirit has no affinity with that vibration. It cannot come into that darkness. And so the spirit leaves us, and then we're exposed to even more chaos and vulnerability. So the protecting of our joy is not just a luxury for us to feel better, but it actually ends up being a shield and a protection, and it actually strengthens our connection with God and our ability. It's like that connection is like an umbilical cord, okay? And that's how we get our sustenance and our provision and our protection. So I think that too, our lightness and our ability to keep joy and lightness and playfulness is going to also be fueling our motivation and inspiration. It's hard to get out there and be, living your purpose and helping others and being a light in dark places if you can't keep that light going within yourself. I think we need to have an ability to have a tool belt full of ways that we can lighten our mood. Not so that we're avoiding our grief, but I think we need to grieve honestly right now for all that's going on in the world. Anything that's coming up within us personally, on a personal level. But I think that then we also need to be able to find a resilient path back to joy, because joy is the thing that, makes us want to get back at it. Okay, all right, I've grieved. Now I'm feeling a little lighter. I'm gonna do some chores. I'm gonna do some exercise and get my endorphins flowing, and then I'm feeling creative. And it's like then we get inspired and motivated, and we want to give and we want to participate in life and pass that joy on to others, right? But I think part of being a spiritually awakened person, a person of wisdom, a mystic, a person who sees the presence of God everywhere, understands that spirit is not logical. And so it requires us in many ways to be comfortable holding a paradox. And one of the constants in life is that there are always tragic things going on, and stressful things and scary things. And we have to sort of learn to be able to hold joy in one hand and at the same time hold sorrow in the other. Otherwise, your days and weeks are going to go by and you're going to just be in a malaise and in a deluge of drowning in your emotions. So here's kind of like what I have been, like my emotional cycle of the day has looked like recently. I'm getting up and I'm saying my prayers and I'm getting my day started. And that's when I guess my spirit is the most exposed and open, and my heart's most open, because that is when it seems like I'm always seeing the updates in the news and the images from Gaza and news about immigration and things like that. And I just feel sorrowful, and I weep and I cry and I pray while I'm in that state of brokenheartedness on behalf of others, not myself. And I pray from that place. And that can be very powerful when our hearts are broken on behalf of others. And so then I pray for these issues and these people, and then I find my way back to lightness. I give it my feeling and my attention and my reverence to grieve and be honest with it. I don't look away. I don't ignore it. I don't tell myself, oh, I've got to save my mental health. Like I want to bear witness to what is happening. And so I let that grief go through me. And then I find my way back to laughing and find my way back to finding the light in the day. And then sometimes in other moments of the day, I'll cry again for a few minutes, and then I'll find my way back to joy again. And it's that kind of resilience and that kind of flexibility that we need right now, because this is what's going to help us maintain and sustain as things continue to get more fucked, honestly. And there's going to be 3 types of people. There's going to be people who can't take it and go insane. There's going to be people who can't take it and bury their head in the sand, and they're going to be in total denial. And then there's going to be the people who are left, who have their eyes wide open, who understand fully what's going on, and they show up and they participate in bringing light into the world and trying to help alleviate the suffering. Speaking out against it, doing positive actions of sharing, whatever we can do, right? So, in addition to just figuring out how to emotionally navigate these times, we need that joy and that lightness, because it's the jet fuel that propels our goals, our dreams, our manifestations. And the world still needs those too. We still need beauty and art and comedy. Sometimes it's listening to a comic talk about current events in the way that they do that gets people to think about things differently. Sometimes comics, while we're laughing, we don't realize the depth of the philosophy that we're taking in. Sometimes their stand-up is really profound, and there's a real message to it. And so one of the things that I've liked to do over the years is, at some point in the day, if I need a little bit of a reset or a pick-me-up or something that will give me some lightness, I love to get on YouTube and find, some good stand-up comics. And there's so much video footage of stand-up comics because they put all their, all of their shows and everything up on YouTube, and so you can get their longer specials, but then you can see their 5-minute bits where you get all their different humor. So it's a nice little way to go and find a 5-minute video that's a comic doing some some shtick, and it's I think it's a good thing to have in your tool belt to just have, in addition to prayer and meditation and all of our serious spiritual tools, just some light and silly things sometimes is just as effective. Go watch some comedy. I like to have a couple of cheesy feel-good music videos that I call them my feel-good songs, that when things get really heavy, I watch my feel-good song music video and it's cheesy enough to bring me back. You might have one yourself, but finding these ways to keep our hearts joyful and light and playful, so that we not only keep our connection with our creativity, but we keep our momentum going. We stay inspired. We stay motivated, because the world needs it. And there's this deeper wisdom coming through too. And this gnosis, this is that wisdom. This is the knowledge. This is the mysteries of God and the Torah revealing themselves in revelation to us. This is our knowledge of self, right? When we realize and discover things about ourself, and we have that deep archetypal awareness of our soul level, right? But gnosis is the hidden wisdom, the higher wisdom, and that is deep within us, and it can be sought after by going within and activating it from within, right? Everyone wants to claim that they have the keys to the kingdom, and I've got the secrets here. I'm going to tell you this. There's so many people out here and out there with agendas, and they want you to listen to the way that they're spinning it. That's why it's been so important in our messages. We've been told the last couple of years, it is so vital that you develop your own connection to God, where you can hear the voice and you can hear that truth coming up within you. And it's there because this is how I know. Going back to that, when we said, okay, go back to your earliest memories of your relationship with God. When you were an innocent child and you had nothing programming you, but you just knew instinctually that there was something more out there. You knew God in a way that was personal and direct. It hadn't been tampered with. You hadn't had the bomb drop or the rug ripped out. You hadn't had that relationship damaged yet. Try to go back to that and remember the truth and the wisdom that dwelled alive within you, even as a child. Even as a child, as the tiniest little child, less than 5 years old, I can remember asking questions that probed my parents to the point of irritation, that they blew me off. They're like, they made me think I'm asking nonsense, but I'm asking questions that were things that rabbis debate for centuries, right? I am asking these questions as a tiny child
what is beyond physical existence? You know, like I'm asking about the unmanifest realms and the what's beyond the veil, like, right? And they're like, what are you talking about? I asked those questions not because I was a learned theologian, but because my spirit is alive and within me, and I could hear it. And I could hear that information coming through because I wasn't blocked. I wasn't weighed down by rationale, and it has to be logical and things have to add up. Somebody, you have to read that somewhere. Who told you that? You have the truth within your bones, within your DNA. Seek and ye shall find. Ask and it is given. If you seek out the Christ that is within you and activate that, the truth will be revealed. It will ooze from your pores. It will permeate your awareness. You won't even realize it. You may not even be able to clearly name it, but it's something right under the surface, the feeling of the truth that you know. And gnosis is that kind of truth that you experience firsthand. And then it can never be taken away from you. Because if somebody tells you something, but you haven't experienced it firsthand, that might be taken away from you. You might be like, well, I learned that once, but I don't know anymore. I'm not so sure, because you don't have any firsthand experience with it. But once you do have firsthand experience with it, you don't question, you know for sure, because you have experienced that situation and on the, hypothetical this or that for your own self. And once you live the truth and you know the truth, that truth will set you free, and nobody can tell you otherwise after that, right? So then you become a free thinker and you have your own thoughts and your own awareness. It can't be tampered with. So that connection to the one, that is the thing that we should cherish and try to strengthen the most, because then we have our own direct connection and we don't have to go through somebody else to tell us what to think, or if something is right or wrong, or which way to go, or this or that, because the guidance will come up from within. And finding this joy, strengthening this connection is going to move things along really quickly. I think that reconnecting with something from childhood, I think we're going back and we're healing childhood traumas and resolving childhood wounds. And I think that is going to offload a lot of heaviness and bring us a lot, like a deep sense, or it feels weird to say a deep sense of levity because it's like a deep lightness, but a profound lightness is going to come forward through that, excitement about life, fun, and that might be surprising in the times that we're living in, right? And because of that, I think it's going to propel the energy really fast. We have 8 of Wands, so this is fast movement, communication, lots of communication going back and forth. Good busyness, right? Appointments, going from this place and that place. So things are moving and taking off. And that was with the comic. So I think that the more fun we can have while we're doing things, the more we can inject fun and joy into things, the faster it will move things along. And I think too, as things get busier and messaging back and forth and whatnot, as things start unfolding, I think keeping a good sense of humor and playfulness is going to be helpful there. And then we have the Chariot here, which is forward movement, achievement in the career, maybe getting fame or recognition for your talent and achievement. So maybe this is like you are solidifying this new wisdom and you're now propelling forward into your next level. This might also be that you are starting to become known for something that you have firsthand experience and expertise with, but like your recent experiences have made you even more like good or knowledgeable or skilled, or like have fine-tuned like the details of your work, or somehow knowledge and new wisdom and insight is accelerating your growth journey, but also accelerating the revelation of potential and achievement as well. So I think we're really on the way to good things and things starting to come into fruition, and it's definitely directly connected to our healing, the revelation of new knowledge and insight and understanding coming through, and our ability to maintain lightness and humor and fun and childlike awe and wonder and joy. All right, y'all, that is all for tonight. We will be back together tomorrow for our weekly manifestation oracle message. So until then, may peace be with you. Ciao.